If you could spend a moment with some remarkable people and discover what their life sounds like, what would you ask? Welcome to Are We On Air? An audio encounter. I'm ARMAN, and each episode will feature one conversation with an inspiring friend of mine who will share with us the soundtrack to their life. Bonjour mes amis, and hello to my beautiful listeners, and welcome back to another incredible episode of Are We On Air? This episode will be our last one for season 3. But do not worry, we will be back right after our well-earned summer break. And what an incredible episode I got for you today, leaving you with the big bang of a guest. The legendary, the wonderful, the talented and beautiful Isabella Rossellini. Isabella and I caught up just right after July 4th weekend at her beautiful farm called Mama Farm on Long Island. And I don't think this woman even needs an introduction. But we covered everything, from her illustrious movie career, her farm life, her life in fashion and photography, to her parents, and of course, her life's soundtrack. Born into movie royalty, with her parents being Ingrid Bergman and Roberto Rossellini, all the way to her time being married to David Lynch, all the way to her upcoming theater shows that I highly recommend. If you are in town, you should catch Isabella on stage. For my friends in Bellport on Long Island, you can catch her at the Gateway Theater August 11th through August 14th. For my friends in San Francisco on October 2nd through October 5th at the Great American Music Hall. And for my Los Angelinos on October 8th through the 9th at the Luckman Fine Arts Complex in LA. We talked about Blue Velvet's composer Angelo Badalamenti and the story behind it, but also our shared love for her late friend, the Italian legend that was Lucio Dalla. And of course, we had to talk about our shared love for the Persian cuisine, which hopefully I'll be able to cook for Isabella at her beautiful farm very soon. Now, if you want to hear all the guests' playlists and stories, you can find them on our Spotify and Apple channels at Are We On Air, and of course on areweonair.com. Lastly, a little few words from me. This season has been a real pleasure and a wonderful ride with all of you beautiful listeners and beautiful guests. My team and I are off riding into the summer sunset, but we will be back in the fall. Stay in touch, leave us a message on our Instagram, and check in, because we will announce our episodes and events very soon. I love you all, and I speak to you soon. Merci, et à bientôt. All right, welcome to Are We On Air, Isabella?
Well, thank you. Fun to be with you.
Yeah, and in your beautiful, I guess, home, Mama's farm.
This is my home, so you will hear that is a truck in the background. But you will hear also birds and my dogs and chickens. I live in a farm. Actually, my home is a mile from my farm. But in my farm, nobody lives here. We have a bed and breakfast at the farm.
It's a beautiful bed and breakfast. I mean, I just had a little walk around and I saw the chickens and the ducks and everything. I love it. It's so tranquilo here. It's beautiful.
Well,
it's a piece of heaven.
Yes, it is. It is, but it's a lot of work. Yeah. A lot of people say, it's so tranquil, the life in the country, you want to relax. But it's much more relaxing to live in an apartment in New York with a doorman and a super than to be in a farm. It's much more work than that. But
sure.
Fun.
Yeah, it's a farm. You still have to work. You have to work it. That's true. Well, one of my works and things I do is doing this little podcast, this little interview series, asking the creative, cultural greats of today about the soundtrack to their life.
Yes.
And just painting a picture of who you are through a couple of songs.
Okay.
And why don't we start with what's your earliest significant musical memory that shaped you as an artist?
I mean, music, I have grandchildren. And if I go la, 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 one of them already starts dancing. Something inside us, that is attracted to music. In fact, You know that I'm an ethologist, I'm a scientist besides being an actress. Darwin said that our ancestor probably sang before we talk. So we probably serenaded before we could say, I love you. So it's very deep inside us, this music. I don't remember one day that I said, oh, this is music. But I remember the day that I was intrigued by the fact that music could change completely a scene. And my father edited his film at home. And his brother, my uncle Renzo, his younger brother, was a composer, and he did a lot of the music for my father's film. And he would come with tracks, and they would play it with the scene. And the scene would actually change slightly according to the music that was played. I don't remember what film exactly he was editing, because I was in my mama's belly in Europe 51, so it might have been Viaggio in Italia. But if you want to search for my uncle's music, you can go to the Criterion Collection, where there is all my father's film: Rome, Open City, Paesa, Germany, Year Zero, Viaggio in Italia, Stromboli. He did all the music to all of them, so you can choose the soundtrack. And I remember specifically looking at them working and seeing how music can change a scene. The scene was done, and he could make it more dramatic, if the music was dramatic, or he can make it more scary. It was the same scene. It was mostly war scene, and we can make it more scary, or we can make it infinitely sad. We couldn't change it completely, make it funny. It was a war scene, but you could give it a hint to how the audience should react to the scene.
That's the power also, I guess, in movies. The sound can elevate or even destroy a scene, absolutely.
You know, when you think of silent films, I mean, there were no words, and you can go without words, but you cannot go without music. Yeah. There was a live pianist that accompanied the films.
Yeah. Crazy, huh? If you think about it today. Yeah. The simplicity, I think that's powerful, though, just with the live pianist and the entertaining. But touching on Darwin, I think Darwin's smile is coming. Smile is coming.
Darwin's smile, yes.
And we are in this beautiful, beautiful piece of paradise here in nature. Do you have a favorite? First of all, you have to explain to me and what's coming up very soon with Darwin's smile. But also, do you have a favorite sound from nature or an animal sound?
Well, you know, animal sounds are very interesting because, of course, we wonder, or we are proud of our ability of speaking, and we don't give it to the animal that they can speak languages as we are. They might have sound, they might have scream or sound of pleasure, but they may not have articulated sentences. But actually, in the latest studies, they found out that they can articulate sentences. For example, a chimpanzee can absolutely understand, I eat apple. And if I say apple eats me, he would laugh because it's a joke. So that is, you know, and it's just exactly the three words, but you change the position and it changes the meaning. So there are many researchers in that case, but rhythm and music, for sure, all animals have it. Even at my farm, roosters sing, turkey gobble. I can hear the howl at night. And in my roosters, they all have a slight different song. We all think they go cock-a-doodle-do, but they don't. One goes cock-a-doodle-do, one goes cock-a-doodle. And I can identify them as I identify the voices of my dogs. When they bark, oh, I know it's Pinocchio, oh, I know it's Morsi. So there must be a signature to these messages. At least, you know, the others recognize, oh, that's Pinocchio talking, or is that rooster or that rooster. That said, I think music, serenading, or maybe having music that intimidates the males, often in birds' cases, they sing, and it's maybe seduction and also territorial and also to chase other males away. So I'm interested in, do they speak? Do they make, you know, I'm surprised that having chickens, I realize they don't just go They have a lot of sounds. And if you live with them, you can distinguish sounds, pitch.
Starting to learn the language. Your ear starts to...
You do. I mean, the other day I don't know, I heard a sound of the chicken and I ran because I knew that they were endangered. So then when I arrived, actually there was a hawk that was flying above their cages. And I said, wow, I'm talking chicken. I recognized they were saying something alarming.
Mama, come help.
Come help or be careful or something. But they were talking and I ran. But I did choose, because one of your questions were 3 songs.
Yes, that's who you are, that would identify who you are.
Right, 3 songs that identify me. So I included something that is a reference to my monologue, Darwin Smile, which is a song by Juliette Gréco, Déshabillez-moi, Undress Me, a sexy song that I sing while I undress in a comical way in my show, because so I chose that. Déshabillez-moi, mais pas tout de suite, ni pas trop vite.
Déshabillez-moi, déshabillez-moi. Oui, mais pas tout de suite, pas trop vite. Sachez me convoiter, me désirer, me captiver. Déshabillez-moi, déshabillez-moi. Mais ne soyez pas comme tous les hommes, trop pressés. Et d'abord le regard, tout le temps du prélude, ne doit pas être rude, ni hagard. Dévorez-moi les yeux, mais avec retenue, pour que je m'habitue.
I grew up in France, and so I speak French, and I'm familiar with musicians, especially of my era, because I think music is very important when you're young. So I grew up with Charles Aznavour, Dalida, Juliette Gréco. They were all the grown-ups that enchanted us with their music. Serge Gainsbourg, of course.
Did you get to meet all of them as well? I mean,
No, I never. I know Jane Birkin.
Who was also on the show?
Yeah, she was on the show.
Yeah.
I know Jane. We have the same French agent producer. His name is Olivier Glusman, and Olivier produces Jane's concert and produces my monologue. So,
there you go.
And yes, and he's a good friend. So I know Jane and go see all her shows, and she's a very poetic human being, isn't she? Then I chose another song, of course, Blue Velvet, the Bobby Vinton, but I've sang it in the film Blue Velvet. It was directed by David Lynch, and I sang it differently than Bobby Vinton. And Bobby Vinton was a kind of a happy ballad, but I was playing a battered woman and goes slightly crazy. And so we changed the interpretation to a more longing, nostalgic, sad music. And so it's interesting. The interpretation is interesting. And of course, I'm not a singer. I'm more of an actress. So
a performer. It's a performer.
A performer, yeah. So a performer do an interpretation. And so we took that song and with David and mostly with Angelo Badalamenti, that works with David, is a fantastic composer and musician.
Who was also playing the keys in the scene on the piano.
Yes, Angelo plays the scene. Yeah. And how he came about is that David thought, I'm not a singer, and David thought that I had to sing because I have an accent, and he couldn't see how sometimes in actors you have a double, somebody that sings for you, so it looks like you're singing very well. But because I speak English funny, they couldn't find somebody who can mimic me and also sing. And so David said, you try. And we were shooting the film in Wilmington, North Carolina, and he had a band of young kids, and they were playing it very happy and rock and roll. And I just said, no, I can't play it that way because she's sad and she's desperate. And in that moment when she's on stage, she's safe because is the only moment which she saved, and she loses herself in these songs. And so I was very firm at saying David, and David agreed that that the song should have been interpreted by the character. And we didn't know, who could help us because we were not musicians. And Fred Caruso, who was the producer, said, I have a friend who does a lot of jingles, Angelo Badalamenti. He's really easygoing. And this adorable person came, like an uncle, warm, funny. And music came so easy to him. You want it this way, you want it that way. And David fell in love with Angelo. And since they've worked and he
together,
did all the music. Yeah. But the first collaboration was to make me sing and help me sing the way I wanted to sing Blue Velvet.
Incredible.
And so it was a great moment.
Bluer than velvet was the night, softer than satin was the light from the stars. She wore blue velvet, bluer than velvet were her eyes. Shadows fall so blue, as lonely as a blue.
Then the other one, of course, it's before me, but essential, As Time Goes by Casablanca.
Of course.
My mom, Ingrid Bergman, is the actress, the leading lady in Casablanca. And of course, that song is beautiful. She did it, I think the film is dated 1949, and I was only born in 1952. So I wasn't even conceived. I wasn't even in her belly. Or she didn't even have an idea that she was going to have me and my twin sister because we're twins. But that song has been it's so beautiful and it's so present in our life. And I remember that whenever we went to a restaurant with Mama or we walked into a bar, if there was a pianist, immediately they played As Time Goes By. At times I am, like when you're doing this superstitious thing, you say, if I can I have a sign that things will go well? And sometimes, all of a sudden, As Time Goes By plays in the radio or somebody hums it, and I just say, Mama is here to protect me.
I'll hum it for you. Da-da-da-da-da-da. Da-da-da-da-da-da. Sing it, Sam.
You must remember this. A kiss is just a kiss. A sigh is just a sigh. The fundamental things apply as time goes by. And when two lovers woo, they still say I love you. On that you can rely. No matter what the future brings, as time goes by.
Sam, I thought I told you never to play.
Oh, fantastic. I love that. It's funny because I was the music director at the Chateau Marmont in Los Angeles. And we had the pianist in the lobby as well who could play anything. And I was like, I need my signature song when I walk in every evening.
Good for you. Yeah. So Mama didn't ask for it, but she got it.
Exactly. I just walk in and...
But you live in Los Angeles still or now? You came to New York?
Since COVID, I've been back in Europe. I'm Persian German.
Yes.
So Europe is really my home.
So in New York, it's easy. It feels more like Europe.
Yeah, I just came for July 4th. I was DJing at Sunset Beach on Shelter Island. So it's perfect.
Great.
Yeah. So it's fantastic, like so close, and I love Bellport. It's so beautiful.
Yeah, Bellport is a little magic place.
It really is.
Yeah.
I prefer it to the going further easy.
Yes, and the traffic there is bad too.
Yeah. No, this is quite magical. So yeah, I've been in Europe. I just came from Paris and straight here. It's easy to New York. LA is the extra
and there's
stretch.
a very big Persian community in Paris.
In Paris, yeah.
Yeah.
Also in Los Angeles.
Oh, in Los Angeles
They
too.
call it Terrangeles.
Toronto.
It's a big community. So yeah, but there are differences between European Persians and the West Coast. They're like usually a bit more pro-Shah, the West Coast, and you have more the intellectuals, the socialists in Europe.
In Europe, yes, there's more tolerance.
Yes.
In America, there's not much tolerance for that. No.
They still,
Yeah.
So now I'm very happy to be here right now, of course.
Yeah.
What were you guys listening to at home? What were your parents listening?
Well, first of all, I didn't live with my parents. We lived separated from them because they were remarried and had other children. So we had an apartment that was where both of them came to visit us, and we went to visit in their homes. But we didn't live with them. But I don't remember music being played constantly in the living room. But I remember that Mama, that after dinner, before we went to bed, we were allowed to be in the living room, and we would play records. And we played West Side Story, remember. Then my stepfather, Lars Schmidt, was a big producer, was Swedish, but produced a lot of shows in the French theater. And he actually produced My Fair Lady and brought it all over Europe, and translated it from English and brought it everywhere. So, of course, we learned all the song of My Fair Lady in French, in Italian, in English, which at the time we didn't speak. The reason I speak so funny is because I learned English.
I don't think it's funny at all. I relate to it.
I only learned English when I was 19. Oh. Otherwise, we grew up in Europe, and Mama was Swedish, and her husband was Swedish. So
how good is your Swedish?
Sorry?
How good is your Swedish?
Very bad. I never learned it because partially Mama really wanted very much us to learn English because she thought it was a more useful language. And I refused, as my children and my grandchildren are now refusing to learn Italian or French, which are my languages. So I'm struggling at forcing them to learn languages. It's not easy in America because nobody speaks languages.
But one thing I love about you is how you managed to build that bridge between the entertainment world, let's call it, and nature. That really speaks to me a lot as well, because I'm in the entertainment world, but also very connected to nature.
To nature.
And
maybe is it part of our culture? I mean, I've never been to Iran, but I wondered if there was any. I mean, for me, it really comes from being Italian, because our cuisine is very important to us, and the Persian cuisine is absolutely incredibly good. And there is not such a division between the city and the country. And we have farmers market, which here is a new discovery on the last 10 years. That's the way housewives lived. That's how they were their social life. You go every day to the market. Yeah. So in the morning when the children are at school, you meet your friends, you chit-chat, you discuss recipes, and you buy from the farmer.
Exactly.
And I still remember when in Italy, the supermarket opened, nobody bought frozen food, Yeah. It was like, if you had to be sick, there had to be some sort of, something, a drought. Then you buy frozen food. There was something that were accepted. Frozen peas. Somehow they were used, they were accepted, but the rest was considered bad. And then stick fish also, I think because it was easy and we children liked it, the breaded one. Yeah. So that was the only thing I ate that was frozen. I never ate canned food. But it wasn't really so much the eating or the gourmet. It's the culture that comes with it. It's the contact with the nature. It's the waiting for the seasons to have the strawberries. Oh, now the cherries are coming. And that is gone in America. You can always find cherry. You can always find strawberries. Yeah.
I mean, during Wimbledon, it's strawberries and cream. That's a tradition. Yeah. It comes from that.
It comes from that. And I don't know if this is the same in your country.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I was born in Germany, so I don't have that direct connection to Iran, even though I've been. But, I mean, the food culture, of course, the Persian cuisine is one of the greatest and most complicated as well.
That was my dog. When we talk about food, she seems to understand and barks. She's my actress dog. Where is she? She's my actress dog, and what makes her very talented is gluttony, because for a treat, she does anything. Yeah.
Don't we all?
Food is important. So living in this farm, it's very interesting. It's not only because we eat well and fresh. It's not that. It's not. But it's just so interesting, And I always say to people that you also see over and over again this very moving and dramatic process of life and death, life and death, life and death. We see it in the vegetable that die, and then we throw in the compost, and the next year the compost, it takes about 6 months to a year to become soil, and we push the soil back into the fields, and the vegetable grow, and you see this process. And this process is very moving and very dramatic. And you have the animals who have a shorter life than us, at least the animals that I hear, because turtle and parrot might live longer than us. But the chicken live about 7, 8 years. Dogs live, 10 to 15 years. And so you experience this ritual that is sweet and dramatic and sad. It allows you to, relax into it, I guess. I don't know. I'll probably panic the day I think that I'm going to die. But I don't know. There is a certain depth in the farm that I love.
It connects you.
Yeah.
I think that we are the same as
exactly
the earth beneath us, for sure. Is that also what kind of channeled into Darwin's Smile, like your upcoming?
Yes, well, Darwin's Smile, so I became very interested. I always loved animals, and I wanted to study animal behavior. And finally, I did it as an adult. And went back to university and took a master's degree on ethology, which is the study of animal behavior. And some people say, well, what is this study? Mm-hmm. But maybe the maximum representative is Jane Goodall, that studied chimpanzee in the wild rather than following them in their natural life instead of studying them in the lab. Because an animal feels so trapped and so panicked in a lab that he may not show all his abilities and all this ability to communicate or to understand. So this is a new science that started, it started before Second World War, then it was interrupted by the war and was, started again. So this is what I've studied. And of course, Darwin is fundamental for the animal behavior. He wrote a book called The Expression of Emotion in Man and Animals. See, Darwin didn't think that was a very big division between us and animal, and that's what offended people. He said there is a continuity, there is a link. Our ancestors, we shared an ancestor with the apes, and that offended many people because they wanted to believe that we had a divine descent from God, and that the animal were created by God, but there were two things separated, and that was what profoundly offended people, and still today, in America especially, people are very offended. But Darwin wrote this book on the expression of emotion of man and animal without giving a second thought. He just assumed that animal had emotions. He just gave it as it was later on in America where they say, no, animal cannot have emotion. And this also then allows incredible exploitation of animals, because if they don't have emotion, then you can crowd chickens in a big industrial farming or put pigs in smaller crate, they can't move, so they can become fat and their meat is more tasty. But animals do have feelings and they express them. And also Darwin thought, and this is an interesting idea for actress, he said if we smile, it's understood all over the world. But if I do a gesture like this, I'm doing an Italian gesture.
Which is an emoji now.
Yeah, we have a lot of gestures in Italy. That's cultural, that's learned. But I've never learned how to smile. Blind people that are born blind smile. So there are certain expressions that might have been shaped by evolution. I'm sorry about all these dogs barking, but that's part of my life.
That's part of our sound.
Okay.
This is part of the sound here, of course.
Marcy!
I like it. We're not in the studio. We're out.
No, we're out. There's a plane going by that we didn't have during COVID. So this is kind of a new sound now that we start to travel again. So these Darwin smiles, Marcy, this Darwin smile, it's a combination of acting and what Darwin says about the expression of emotion, because, of course, acting is the expression of emotion. So when I do a character, and I often play not only an Italian, for example, now for HBO, in Julia, I play a French character. I have to be careful the way I move, because I can smile freely, I can show my anger freely, But there are certain others movement that I have to be careful because they would reveal that I'm Italian. Some are learned, but they are ingrained in you very deeply because you learn them when you are little. So it's a study of that. So it's a show. All my shows are comedies, but this one is a show about acting and a lesson about acting and what I know, and then what Darwin said.
Incredible. I like how you merged that. Beautiful. And from all your roles over the years, was there one that stuck with you?
Blue Velvet, my character Dorothy Valance. I don't think the film really portrayed a battered woman, and I think it was done, 40 years ago. And the conversation about battered women was not as evolved or not as open as it is today. So I think that the film, in that sense, opened up a subject and was also terribly controversial because of it. But it was a very, very interesting role to play, and I loved working with David. I love David. I fell in love with him. So we did other films together.
Yeah.
But that one is particularly fantastic. Then I worked with a Dutch actor with whom I've done several films, Jeroen Krabbe, and Jeroen directed a film called Left Luggage about Hasidic Orthodox Jew. And I just said to Jeroen, where do you want me? I'm a Roman Catholic. I'm not practicing, but why don't you get a Jewish actress? And he said, they will exaggerate. So he wanted another religion. And it was really interesting because I didn't know much about the Orthodox Jewish community. And so I felt like an anthropologist. And it was interesting. I had to speak Yiddish or speak with a Yiddish accent, occasionally words in Yiddish, but also had a coach gesture, because all the gestures had to be Jewish. So I'm integrating also this in my show. For example, if I indicate that I read a book, I couldn't do the gesture of turning the page from right to left, but to left to right. And so I had this gesture coach that was always correcting me. It was so interesting. So that was very enjoyable because it was beyond acting. It was discovering a whole community. And then I really loved working with John Schlesinger, the director John Schlesinger. We did a film that was not successful at all called The Innocent with Tony Hopkins and Campbell Scott. But for me, it was great to work with him because he gave me a great confidence as an actress. I was a model and a very successful model.
Still are.
Yeah, still are, a little bit modeling for Lancôme, my family, forever. But acting, my mom was Ingrid Bergman, a very famous actress. My father was a very revered filmmaker, Roberto Rossellini. So I came to film late, in my 30s, and with great hesitation and fear of, am I as good as them? As I less than them? And if I'm less than them, should I continue or do my own job? And I did, at the beginning, I didn't want to act. In fact, I only started to be an actress in my 30s. And modeling seems to be close enough,
still within your kind of
But
corner.
It was mine,
Yeah.
right. And then the more I did it, the more I said, oh, it feels like an actress,
Yeah.
It feels just, I don't have words, but I have to show emotion in front of the camera.
All you needed is a piano player.
Yes, all I need is a piano player,
Yeah,
silent movie star.
yeah.
In fact, Richard Avedon, with whom I worked a lot, and Richard Avedon was a great fashion photographer, not only a fashion photographer. He always said, modeling is a little bit like silent movie star. And so that's what gave me because that was a door that was open, especially, not only because I was my mom's daughter, but because models are offered, because film business, they like beautiful girls. So, and that's how I started to act, but always with hesitation and a little bit. And then Blue Velvet, I think I did a very good job, but I only know it now 40 years later. At the time when the film came out and it was very controversial, I had wondered if another actress could have made it maybe less controversial, and if there was something that I did wrong. I didn't want the film to be controversial. It was about a woman, not about a woman that was sexy or sinful or immoral. So I was because the film was accused of being that. And so I felt very guilty that maybe I'd done something wrong. But now the film has the right reputation. And I think I did it right. I don't think I did it wrong. So now I'm fine. But John Schlesinger, who was such a revered director of Sunday, Bloody Sunday, Midnight Cowboy. Worked with fantastic actors from England, from everywhere. Gave me confidence. He kept saying, but you're so good. And I believed him, and it gives you that confidence. And once you have confidence, you become much more daring. You become more playful than when you are insecure and you freeze a bit.
Wow. How beautiful to have those memories, and those experiences. Also like learning from different cultures, like the gestures, to have a gesture coach. I mean, how fabulous.
Yeah, it's interesting,
right.
Isn't it?
That's a skill that stays with you, see? Touching on your modeling career.
Yes.
Shooting with Avedon, for instance.
Yes.
Do you remember if there was music in the studio? Was there music that played a role in your modeling
So
career?
in the studios, they always played music. I wonder if they played it in Avedon's. I don't think Avedon played many music, nor Penn. The old generation of fashion photographers, they didn't want music. Maybe they played music in the studio, in the cabin where we were having hair and makeup done, because the kids want music. But they did not want music. And the best DJ is Bruce Weber. I mean, Bruce Weber plays the best music,
What does he play?
Well, I remember so much Chet Baker.
Yes.
All this music that is very moody and full of emotions. And he plays the music to the emotion that he wants you to emanate for the camera. And Bruce has an enormous knowledge of music. I'm not very...
I mean, he did that Chet Baker documentary.
He did Chet Baker documentary.
How he left at midnight the Broadway theater where he was doing the play. He was walking down the street, and out of the darkness, he saw a man sitting alone in the back seat of a car. And the light from the cigarette showed off just his cheekbones. And he knew that had to be Chet Baker. Chet's first wife, Charlene, told us how Chet used to put the trumpet in the shower because he thought it was good for the sound. Someone told me he used to walk from Paris to Rome to cool out. Dick Bach, the founder of Pacific Jazz Records, said that Chet was one of the most unique players. He was a mixture of Louis Armstrong, Dick Beiderbecke, and Bunny Berrigan all rolled into one. I got him at the best time in his life. He was just a kid. He was 22, just out of the army. He hadn't had junk yet. I got the best years and some of the best music that he ever played. And it was a thrill.
But I remember, we would shoot. Actually, I ended up in Bellport because Bruce is married to Nan Bush, who is from Bellport. And 40 or 50 years ago, when I started modeling, they still lived in Bellport. They had a house in New York, of course, an apartment in New York. But then in a house right at the end of my farm. And
before they moved to Montauk.
Before they moved to Montauk. And so I came here, and then I learned to take the train because I didn't drive, being a New Yorker. And then when Nan and Bruce moved to Montauk, and, they moved to several places, Montana, I knew my way to Bellport and brought my children here because it was easy. It was a little hotel. There was a beach. Little that I know, and now I own, 30 acres, a hotel myself, my house. But I think Bruce had the best music during the photographic session. And he had somebody following, with his enormous radio, the ghetto blaster, and following, and he would command, play this, play that. And it was really, you just had to listen to the music, and the music helped the expression he wanted.
You just had an exhibition of your photos here.
Yes, it is in Bellport at the Historical Society. There's many of Bruce.
Fantastic. I'll go and have a look.
Yes.
We just briefly touch on your Lancôme experience.
Yes. Lancôme also has a fantastic music.
I was about to say, what from your journey from beginning, middle to now with your Lancôme story, is there like a track that for you defines that?
Yes, the music for Trésor, the advertisement of the perfume Trésor. First of all, Trésor this year has turned 30 or 31. There were the couturiers, the stylists, they had the important perfume, Chanel, Dior, but not the big cosmetic houses like Estée Lauder or Lancôme. They didn't have the perfume that made you dream. And Lancôme was determined to get that record and came out and put a big effort behind creating this marvelous fragrance that is Trésor. And Trésor did go number 1, defeating, even selling more than Chanel number 5, that for years had been the number 1. And guess who made the music of a beautiful advertisement shot by a compatriot of yours, Darius Conji, the cinematographer.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Darius, very young Darius.
Ah.
And
Shout out to Darius. Darius June.
And Peter Limburg, the photographer, also from Germany. So you grew up in Germany. So it was all up your alley. So it was Darius, Peter, and I. Music, Angelo Badalamenti. And still, though they've changed, now Penelope Cruz does the advertisement, Kate Winslet did the advertisement, but the music is always Angelo.
Angelo, huh? Fantastic. How that story
You
continues.
got to play that song.
Yeah, for sure.
Le parfum des instants précieux, trésor de l'encombre.
Now, to go slightly more intimate, what's your go-to falling in love or heartbreak
So,
song?
Heartbreak Song, is that a Heartbreak Song? It was also in the same category as Falling in Love.
You can choose or have
Oh,
both?
well, but it's more heartbreak than Falling in Love. And it's by an Italian composer called Lucio Dalla.
I love
You know Lucio
Dalla,
Dalla?
of course.
He was a good friend of mine.
He
I
passed
adore.
a couple of years ago, yeah.
No, 10 years ago this
10 now,
year.
yeah.
I mean, Lucio Dalla is extraordinary. The mayor of Naples was occupied by Camorra, which is the local mafia. A new mayor came, cleaned up the city. The mayor wanted to do a big concert and asked Lucio Dalla to do a concert, being top singer. And Lucio Dalla asked me to present. And I was there saying, ladies and gentlemen, Lucio Dalla, ladies and gentlemen, Zucchero, ladies and gentlemen, Gaetano Veloso. And Gaetano Veloso sang that beautiful song, Ay, 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 ay. And that was in that beautiful film by Pedro Almodovar. One of the most beautiful films ever. Talk to her. So we have to add Gaetano Veloso and Paloma.
When was this, that concert?
The concert, it was many years ago. And Lucio took me on a boat. It was my birthday. We did it in June. So my birthday, June 18th. So the concert wasn't that day, but around, we were there.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. And Lucio took me in a boat and then presented a mozzarella, a huge mozzarella in the shape of a cake, the biggest mozzarella ever with a candle. And he sang for me with the guitar and singing. And we had a few friends on the boat looking at the Gulf of Naples. I mean, it was the best birthday I've ever had with these fantastic human beings.
Oh, that's someone I would have loved to see playing live, obviously.
Yeah. He was simpaticissimo, Dalla. Very, very funny man. You've never met him?
No. But it's when I speak with Italian and also Italian friends and Dalla, their eyes change. People
Dalla
have a
is
very
like Bob
fond...
Dylan in America or Edith Piaf in France. It is our hero. Yeah. And Lucio told me that he went one day to Sorrento, which is a place near Naples.
Beautiful, yeah.
overlooking at the Naples Gulf, and in the front of it there is the island of Capri and Ischia. And he came into a hotel and he was given a room. And as he entered the hotel, the concierge said, Enrico Caruso used to come and stayed here. And he stayed here a few days before he died. And Enrico Caruso was an opera singer, very, very famous. He died I looked up
early 20th
when he
century.
died. Yes, 1921.
Yeah.
But
beautiful recordings.
Beautiful recording, an early recording. But he was hugely successful. He traveled all over the world. And when the door closed, he felt the ghost of Caruso. He felt the presence of Caruso. And he wrote a very beautiful song dedicated to Caruso. And the song also is very touching. Is the song of a man who's dying, who is slightly delirious, who confuses the lights in the Gulf, because it's at night. He can't distinguish if they are the lights of the Gulf where he was born, or if they are the lights of the theater where he had sang in New York. But then he sees the very beautiful eyes, blue eyes, the same color of the sea of a young girl. And in fact, Caruso married a very young woman that before dying, and she assisted him during the last years of his death. He died of tuberculosis. And so he confuses the blue eyes with the blue sea and the light of in the Gulf of Naples with the, and then so occasionally said, just give me some makeup and give me a costume and I can become someone else. So it's all about the theater too, and the theater of life. And that song breaks my heart. In Italian we have a word, struggente, which I don't know exactly how to translate. And of course, Lucio was a very good friend of mine, and that song is my song of, if not falling in love, of this feeling of struggente.
Qui dove il mare luccica e tira forte il vento, su una vecchia terrazza davanti al golfo di Sorrento, un uomo abbraccia una ragazza dopo che aveva pianto, poi si schierisse la voce e ricomincia il canto. Te voglio bene assai, ma tanto, tanto bene sai, è una catena ormai, e scioglie il sangue dentro da una sai. Vide le luci in mezzo al mare, pensò alle notti là in America, ma erano solo le lampare e la bianca scia di un'elica. Sentì il dolore nella musica, si alzò dal pianoforte, ma quando vide la luna uscire da una nuvola, gli sembrò più dolce anche la morte. Guardò negli occhi la ragazza, quegli occhi verdi come il mare. Poi all'improvviso uscì una lacrima e lui credette di affogare. Te voglio bene assai, ma tanto, tanto bene sai. È una catena ormai, e scioglie il sangue dentro da una sai.
It's such a beautiful song. I love it so much as well. And actually, Luciano Pavarotti emulated, his idol was Caruso. So he was always, as a young boy, trying to emulate his voice after Caruso. And when Dalla did that song, he did a rendition, a cover of that, Pavarotti as well, of Lucio Dalla's.
Yes.
Yeah. Beautiful rendition.
Qui dove il mare luccica
e tira forte il vento su una vecchia terrazza davanti al golfo di Sorrento. Un uomo abbraccia una ragazza dopo che aveva pianto, poi si schiarisce la voce e ricomincia il canto. Te voglio bene assai, ma tanto bene sai. È una catena ormai che scioglie il sangue tinte vene.
Because another song that I've chosen, just because it was done by many others, it was La Vie en Rose, that I put it as the sexiest song in your list. And La Vie
By who?
Well, of course,
Piaf.
Piaf,
Yeah.
Edith Piaf was the first one. But then, so many other people sang it. And I think it's always beautiful. Grace Jones, Louis Armstrong, Lady Gaga in A Star is Born. And that song, it's so wonderful. And even if it is played, even when it's played by different artists, they all find a pitch that makes it so lovingly. It's sexy in the sense of tenderness. This is a song in French that says, when my man takes me in my arm, the life looks pink. And it changes the feeling. And it's the feeling of tenderness. And when you are in that moment of intimacy in your arm, the man you love or the woman you love, there is something very special that you cannot share with anybody else, and there is the profound tenderness. And I think the song captures it.
Des yeux qui font baiser les miens, en rire qui se perdent sous sa bouche. Voilà le portrait sans retouche de l'homme auquel j'appartiens.
Beautiful. I think you should make a rendition of La Vie en Rose.
Well, we have Angelo Badalamenti will have to help me because, I need a lot of editing. I go out of tune a lot.
Well, to wrap up our little chat, which was just purely and wonderful.
Yes, I do have another one.
Please.
You said end credit.
Well, I was about to ask you that.
Because
you're one step ahead of me. But
because thank God you sent me the question ahead of time, although we didn't stay exactly on the question you've sent.
But that's just an opener.
Because,
travel.
Because you need to think.
Yes.
And it's Charlie Chaplin's Smile.
Beautiful.
That would be my end credit. First of all, it became kind of my motto. Even when there are difficult times, in my head, I try to sing Charlie Chaplin. And I understood the power of that song, which I heard in Charlie Chaplin singing. But when Michael Jackson died and Jermaine, his brother, sang it at the funeral to these heartbreaking images of these young orphans devastated by the father's death and one of them holding a Michael Jackson doll. It was so painful. And he sang it with such pathos. And I understood the power of that song. and keep smiling. Keep smiling. And then life will eventually, in the darkness, there will be a little bit of light, and it will pull you out of sadness.
That's the time you must keep on trying. Smile, what's the use in crying? You'll find that life is still worthwhile if you just smile. Though your heart is aching, smile. Even though it's breaking, when there are clouds in the sky, you'll get by. If you smile through your fear and sorrow, smile, and maybe tomorrow you'll find that life is still worthwhile if you just smile. La, la,
Beautiful set. And yes. I mean, what a way to wrap up our beautiful chat. I love it. I love it. Do you sometimes, do you have a song with your parents? Do you sing to them as well?
My father loved Neapolitan songs.
Oh, we all do. I'm never done.
Santa Chiara. I remember he singing and whistling away Neapolitan songs.
Monasterie Santa Chiara, chiuso dinta quattro mura, quanta femmina sincera si perdevano in amore, si sposavano a Gesù. Fontanelle Capemonte, ma si perdono in amante, già ne tenen a ticciente, che una femmina innocente, dice a gente, non c'è più.
And then, of course, Neapolitan songs are very important in Italian culture. And going back to Lucio Dalla, what was interesting is that Dalla is from Bologna, which is in northern Italy. But he sings about Caruso and Naples, and he mixes his accent, which is from Bologna, with some words of Naples. Also, not only as an homage to Caruso, but also an homage of how Italy loves Naples and what we love about it. And by using the Neapolitan words of Te voglio bene assai. Assai means a lot, but in Neapolitan, in Rome we'll say molto. So the words are completely different, but there is, everybody in Italy has a tender spot for Naples because it's a city that gave us so many artists and fantastic music.
I'm a big fan of Napoli. I go once a year for sure.
Yeah, me too. I love Naples.
I need it. It speaks my language. I think it is something about port cities in general.
Port cities in general. There's
so much patina, so much exchange over such a long time that it just rubs off.
There are some very maybe another thing, but then it becomes too long, my interview.
No, please.
But
we can edit it anyway,
what is really incredible is that film that John Turturro made about Neapolitan song. Mm-hmm. Have you seen it? It's called Passione. I think it is in Netflix.
Okay.
And in Passione, there is a lot of music that it is the music of a harbor. It is an African rhythm with Neapolitan song, with rock and roll, with something, occasionally from France. And it's all a mishmash. And, we think of the Neapolitan song in a traditional way. O Sole Mio, Monasterio Santa Chiara.
The Godfather soundtrack.
The Godfather soundtrack. But this is the new music of the new generation, and John Turturro captured it in his documentary.
oh, I'm definitely going to watch it tonight.
Passione.
Yeah, Passione. Before we wrap up, what's your favorite area in Italy? Do you still go back often?
I do go back, and I do love Naples very much. My father adored Naples, and we spent all our holidays when we were little in Positano or Amalfi, on the Amalfi Coast, which is right south of Naples, facing Capri. I had, besides David Lynch, I loved another man very much that was from Naples, an Italian writer, Luciano De Crescenzo, and so he brought me much to Naples and made me fall in love with their culture and the humor, the food. And so Naples is an important city. But when I go, generally I stay in Rome because that's where I grew up and that's where some of my cousins are still there and brother.
Fantastic. Well, Isabella, it's been a real pleasure. Thank you for being on air with us.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Smile, though your heart is aching. Smile, even though it's breaking. When there are clouds in the sky, you'll get by. If you smile through your fear and sorrow, smile and maybe tomorrow you'll see the sun come shining through for you.
Thank you for tuning in this week. If you want to listen to the full playlist, visit areweonair.com or our Spotify channel. You can also find us on Instagram and on YouTube at @areweonair. And a big thank you to my wonderful team at Studio Noi. I'm Arman, and I'll speak to you soon.